Hello, my fellow YouTubers and subscribers, and welcome to my latest podcast, where today I continue my analysis of the Planet of the Apes series with the second installment of the series, Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Beneath the Planet of the Apes, directed by Ted Post, released in 1970, 2 years after the original film, starring James Franciscus, Kim Hunter, Maurice Evans, Linda Harrison, and Charlton Heston. If you remember, I really enjoyed the first Planet of the Apes movie. It was a fantastic movie with a great political social commentary. How does this one fare? Well, stay tuned to find out more. So the basic plot synopsis of Beneath the Planet of the Apes is as follows. The sole survivor of an interplanetary rescue mission searches for the only survivor of the previous expedition. He discovers a planet ruled by apes and an underground city run by telepathic humans worshipping an atomic bomb. Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Well, I think it's a very well-known fact among the franchise that it's a very mixed bag of quality, and I said that last time, and the original series itself is not a crowning masterpiece. The first film is a masterpiece, but the sequels that follow it vary in quality. So how does the second one fare? For me, Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes movie is the craziest installment in the franchise. But Beneath the Planet of the Apes is the weirdest. This movie is so fucking weird, beyond belief. It's nuts. Beneath the Planet of the Apes, it is an enjoyable film. It's decent, it's good fun, it's a bit more action-packed than the first one, and it's different in that regard, so I appreciate the fact that it's different. But that being said, this movie is without question the weirdest installment of the franchise, period. This movie is so zany. It goes in such a bizarre direction towards the end. And honestly, I can't quite sort of imagine why it does that in some ways. The first two acts of this movie are great fun because it's an enjoyable rescue mission. We are introduced to the character of Brent, who is basically a Charlton Heston lookalike, who is sent to look for, well, the real Charlton Heston, otherwise known as Taylor, and he stumbles across Nova, the girl from the previous film, played by Linda Harrison, and together they have to go and find Taylor, and they end up back in the Ape City. Once again, Cornelius and Zero have to help. So there are similar beats to the first movie. And then when we get to the third act, that's when it goes crazy. That's when it gets really weird. Like I say, the first two acts are action-packed, great fun, a good rescue mission, although they do lack the political intrigue of the first movie, but we'll get to that in a moment. But the third act, as soon as we get to the underground cave where we see these weird humanoid aliens worshipping an atomic bomb, I saw that and I was just, what? I mean, that is such a bizarre thing. What? They're worshipping this atomic bomb, you know, and then they're able to hypnotize people into doing what they want. They hypnotize Brent and Taylor into a fight. They hypnotize Brent into nearly killing Nova and then kissing her as well. It's all wacky shit. Whoa! This movie is on acid. This movie's tripping balls, and it's not afraid to be like that. It does prove for some very impressive makeup on the humans, and once again, the makeup across the board is fantastic. The production values speak for themselves. There's an epic budget for this movie. The apes all look fantastic, and the humans also look fantastic when their faces peel off, and you see this kind of disgusting facial deconstruction, I suppose. It looks as though they've been burnt really to a crisp, or they've had like massively bad sunstroke or something. It's just a bit weird, that's all. And there's this whole almost like church service, like a religious service, where they are praising the bomb and then singing hymns, and they're singing all things bright and beautiful, creatures great and small. Like, what the fuck? It's so bizarre. I would totally get if people were turned off from this movie because of that. I don't think the movie is a failure at all. I actually think it's quite good. Like I said, that the first two acts are highly entertaining, and you could watch it as a fun action romp that continues after the first film. But yeah, the plot is very thin, and it doesn't really have the the drama or the intrigue of the first film, which is what made the first film so interesting, was about how this society came to be, how the apes came to be, and how they dominated over man. And obviously the end twist of the first movie being that they took over the earth. This film starts with a recap of that, which is kind of unnecessary. I guess for people who hadn't seen the first film, it was quite good, but just pay a few bucks, watch the first film before you see this one. And then we get introduced to Brent, and if I'm going to be honest, I'm not really that interested in Brent. The actor is fine, he does what he can with the role, but the script doesn't really develop him. He's a paper-thin character. If you think about it, Taylor wasn't that well developed in the first movie either, but Brent is even thinner a character. I mean, well, physically he's pretty skinny as well, but in terms of the writing, he's a very bare-bone character. He's cast because he's a Charlton Heston lookalike, and Charlton Heston was reluctant to have a big role in this. He didn't really want to come back very much, and they managed to get him in for some brief moments towards the end of the movie. Just kind of a shame that Brent could have been his own character, but he really wasn't. It's very hard to get attached to Brent. Like I said, the actor does a fine job, but the writing just isn't really there. Charlton Heston is good in this film, although he's not in it that much, so don't watch it for him. And obviously the ending of the film is pretty epic. I do love the finale of this film, aside the whole weird hypnosis, alien worshipping bomb shit. The action climax is pretty entertaining when the apes raid the cave and try to destroy the bomb. Brent, Nova, and Taylor try to escape. And sadly, Nova, doesn't make it. I don't know if it's much of a spoiler at this point because the movie's been out for so long. And then Brent and Taylor die, destroying the Earth. So Taylor actually ignites the bomb and he destroys the Earth. And we have this final narration which says, that planet with blue and green is now missing. It's dead. So yeah, pretty dramatic ending. I mean, I suppose in some ways it's a little rushed. They could have made that a little bit more emotional and elongated the impact of that, but it's still pretty dramatic. I'll give the movie that. It does have a shocking ending, so it doesn't particularly end well for anybody in this film, and that's kind of what makes Beneath an interesting installment for me, because of where it leads to. Not so much what happens in it, but the destination of this film is interesting, how it all gets to that point. And yeah, I think it only encourages me to want to watch more. So the movie deserves points for that. It's worthy to note that while Kim Hunter returns as Zira, Roddy McDowall does not return as Cornelius. Somebody else plays Cornelius in this movie. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell because the voices sound very similar, and obviously the makeup is the same. A guy called David Watson plays Cornelius. I mean, they're not as good as they are in the first movie. They don't have as much to do, but their roles in this are very similar. They're just helping the traveller, like they help Brent in the same way they helped Taylor in the first movie. So those scenes felt the most derivative from the first movie, I will say. And seeing like the High Council of Apes, like Dr. Zaius and some of the other ape characters, they don't really feature that much, other than them trying to chase Brent and Nova. It's a shame that they didn't have bigger roles. And Linda Harrison as Nova, she's good in this film. It's a shame that she doesn't have more scenes with Charlton Heston because she has better chemistry with him than Brent. And like I said, there's some very uncomfortable scenes where they're being hypnotized and Brent is strangling her. He's trying to drown her in this water, and then he's strangling her and he's also kissing her at the same time. It's a little bit weird, and her death is sad. Actually, her death is the saddest moment of the film. I have to admit that. So they could have had some more emotional moments like that to really heighten the stakes of this film. I also think that the action is great. Like, say, the fight scene between Brent and Taylor in the cell is very well done. Even though the hypnosis stuff and the atom bomb stuff is weird, there are some elements of this film that are highlights, and that was one of them. And also the music is very good. It's much in the same vein of the first movie. But this movie definitely feels very weightless after the first one. It's not got the same impact, despite the ending being shocking. The build-up to it isn't as good as you would hope it to be. You have a paper-thin protagonist, really, which is a shame. And the apes themselves are good, although they don't do as much as they do in the first one. And again, it just really lacks the political intrigue and the drama that was in the first movie. It's a fun action romp, I would say, with some very weird shit in the third act, but aside from that, there's not much to it. It is a very thin sequel, I would say, by comparison. And I just think that Brent is too much of a Taylor lookalike. They clearly were trying to model him on Charlton Heston, and James Franciscus just, they look very similar. He looks like a younger version of Charlton Heston and a thinner version of Charlton Heston, but oh well, that's the direction they went in. But even though the end of the film has the Earth being blown up, the series does not end here. But as for my final score on Beneath the Planet of the Apes, I'm going to give the movie, I'm going to be generous, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Because I do think it's decent. I think there are some really fun moments to be had in it, but it definitely loses its way in the third act when it goes very weird and crazy, and then you know, for other reasons as well. It definitely loses its way in the third act, for sure. But I like the ending, and I think it's intriguing to want to know more. So that's my review of Beneath the Planet of the Apes. What do you guys think of this film? Please comment down below, let me know, and stay tuned next time when we review the third movie, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, in which we get a very different movie than what we've had the first 2 times. So anyway, please hit the like and subscribe button, and stay tuned for more podcasts. So until next time, see you soon. Bye for now.